Okay, great, wonderful. Well, thank you everybody for coming out. I had no idea how many people would actually come for a vegan cooking lesson, so it's wonderful to see so many of you. Um, we're recording this, so just for posterity, my name's Reverend Stephen Milton, and I've been a vegan for I think 3 years, and I was a vegetarian for like 10 before that. And today I'm just going to explain some really basic stuff about being vegan, because there's this one thing you have to understand for a vegan diet to work. So I will go into that in great detail. So the first thing is, what is being vegan? Vegans are people who don't eat anything that came from an animal. That's the simple definition. So I've mentioned to people, oh, I'm vegan, and they say, oh, but you eat chicken, right? No. No, I don't eat chicken. I don't eat chicken, I don't eat beef, I don't eat lamb, I don't eat steak. Anything that comes from an animal, I don't eat it. Now, most people go, okay, so you're taking off the steak and the chicken off the plate. But they go, what about milk and eggs? You know, those also come from animals. Vegetarians, most of them will eat eggs and dairy and so forth. Vegans won't. And vegans even argue about whether it's okay to eat honey, since animals, insects were involved. So, it depends on how hardcore you are, but basically vegans mean no animal participation at all in terms of the eating. So why would you do that to yourself? Because it is harder, at least at first. Well, there's a number of reasons. Back in the 60s and 70s, a lot of people went vegan, not a lot of people, but the people who went vegan often did it in terms of animal rights. They said the way animals are treated in factory farms is just disgusting and cruel. We don't have the right to do that to them. We're a long way from, Bessie the cow who lived on the farm and everybody knew Bessie and loved Bessie and eventually they ate Bessie. We're a long way from that. So animal rights is a reason to go vegan. But since then, there's also become a growing awareness that meat eating is terrible for the environment. And that plays out in a whole bunch of ways. To create just a single hamburger patty takes something like 40 gallons of water. It's just insane. Meat is highly difficult on the environment in all sorts of ways. It's not just that it drains the aquifers, which is a big deal, but it's it's also difficult because you basically have to grow the food that gets fed to the animals. So you're taking up cropland twice, right? So you grow the hay, dump fertilizer, grow the hay, put it into a truck, drive it to where the cows are, and then the cows eat it and produce your milk. Well, that's a lot of carbon being expended all the way through there. Cows are also a significant source of methane when they, expel their gases, and methane is far worse for the environment than even carbon dioxide, like to the tune of, I think, 20 times as bad, right? So the whole agricultural cycle in terms of let's grow some food to feed the animals before we eat the animals is so tough on the environment. It's been estimated that if everybody in the world went vegan, 20% of greenhouse gases would just disappear. So you can actually, it's one of those things where you can actually personally make a difference to the environment by switching your diet to become vegan. Okay, so how do you do it? Well, meat eaters, diets evolve over time, right? The Mediterranean diet is a very healthy diet. It's taken thousands of years to get to where it is. And nobody thinks about the nutrition which they're eating when they eat their native diet, whether it's Chinese or Mediterranean or Greek or German. You just eat what you eat because that's what you eat. Some people eat fish for breakfast. Other people think that's disgusting. They'd rather have cereal, right? Each culture has figured out a diet which works for keeping you alive. And you don't have to think about it because it's already evolved to a point where that's just what we eat at breakfast, and that's what we have at lunch, and that's what a normal dinner is. And in the West, the way that works is, let's say you have a bowl of cereal in the morning, okay? Milk and cereal. And then you have lunch, you have a ham and cheese sandwich, and then maybe for dinner you have a chicken breast and some vegetables. The secret sauce in this is protein. We humans need 50 grams of protein a day, depending on your weight and age, but around 50 grams of protein. Meat eaters always get enough protein. we've managed to insinuate meat and meat proteins into pretty much everything we eat all the time. So that breakfast meal is 9 grams of protein from the milk and 5 to 10 grams of protein from the cereal. A ham and cheese sandwich is 19 grams because you got cheese and ham, 2 protein sources in between some carbohydrates. And then the chicken breast, this is 31 grams of protein right here. You only need 50 for the day, so you're most of the way there just with the chicken breast. And there are vegetables that have trace amounts of protein as well. But meat eaters, basically, you don't worry about your protein because we've insinuated protein into everything that we eat. That's just how the diet has evolved. When we have funerals here and we cater the reception afterwards, as a vegan, I find I can't eat anything because every single sandwich has protein in it. It's tuna, it's egg, it's chicken, everything has protein in it because in our culture, if you want to serve people properly, you give them meat, right? So, if you're going to become a vegan, initially you might think, oh, okay, I'll just have more vegetables, but I won't have chicken and I won't have steak and so forth. That will get you into big trouble because you can't just have more salad and more potatoes and more broccoli. That is going to kill you because those are not good protein sources. So you have to introduce protein back into your diet using plants. And this is the part which we did not grow up knowing anything about. So I'm going to introduce you to the really good protein sources. So chickpeas, a cup of cooked chickpeas, and these are dried, but a cup of cooked chickpeas is 14.5 grams of protein. So that's about half of a chicken breast for the same, more or less the same volume. Navy beans, like any kind of white beans, 15 grams, pretty good. And you'll note that a lot of peasant diets, right, where they couldn't afford meat, they go heavy on beans. So a Mexican diet, right, beans and rice. African diets are like this too. It's because this is where they're getting their protein, even if they can't afford to kill a chicken every meal. Red lentils, 18 grams. These things are great. Red lentils absorb a ton of liquid, so if you want to make a spaghetti sauce and you want to just slip some protein into it, slip in some red lentils. You'll never know they're there. They'll thicken up your sauce, but they'll give you protein. Split peas, 16 grams. So Indian, right? Indian cooking, dal soups, protein soup. And what are these? Oh, and these are green lentils, 18 grams. But the heavyweight in all of this is tofu. Tofu is your hero. Tofu is your new best friend if you're going to become a vegan. And now that may sound disgusting because tofu in its raw state is kind of disgusting. Nobody snacks on raw tofu. But a cup of raw tofu, or a cup of cooked tofu is 47 grams of protein. It is the hero of your diet. And we were talking about this before before we started among the vegans in the crowd. And like the thing about tofu is you just need to learn how to cook it. It comes in various consistencies. There's like really liquidy kind of tofu, silken tofu. Then there's firm tofu like this. Firm tofu like this, you can barbecue with it. It'll come out crispy. It'll be soft on the inside and really crispy on the outside. So if you want to be able to have a kind of meat feel, tofu is your friend. And you can put it into anything, and it'll absorb flavors. So I made a mushroom curry yesterday that I put tofu cubes into it, and it's going to taste just like curry. So, all right, so it's a good idea to go this way, but what most people do when they start being vegan is they say, I miss hamburger, and I miss fish, and I miss chicken. So what they do is they seek out fake chicken, fake hamburger, and fake meat. There's a lot of that out there, right? There's a whole industry devoted to creating fake meat. And it's high in protein, so it solves that problem. But it's also really high in salt and all those chemicals which, in the ingredients list, you're actually putting yourself backwards if you rely on that stuff a lot. I mean, it's okay to do every once in a while, but If every meal you're just replacing the missing chicken with some fake chicken, you're basically slowly poisoning yourself thanks to the food industry. It's just not safe in the long run. You'd be much better off learning how to get used to real vegetable protein. Yeah, Don?
What is tofu?
Tofu is soybean.
Soybean?
Yeah, it's pressed soybean. So it's highly concentrated soybeans, basically. So I wouldn't recommend using fake meat at every meal because you're just introducing yourself to a whole bunch of fake things which aren't very good for you. I would recommend doing this. Problem, though, is that although, okay, so 18 grams per cup, so 2 cups of this will get you most of the way towards your protein goal for the day. But nobody's going to sit down and eat 2 cups of red lentils and call it a meal. We're just not going to do that. And the same is true for all of these things. I mean, you could make a chickpea, you could make a chana masala, which is like a chickpea curry. That's great. But nobody eats just the raw chickpeas, even though it would be good for you. Even if you cook them, like a cup and a half of chickpeas in a bowl is not a meal. No one would stay vegan if they had to eat that way. So what you do is you start making sauces and you start making stews and curries and stuff, right? But the trick with all of that is that it's really mushy. Pretty much all of these, with the exception of tofu, all of these, when you cook them, become mushy. And you want to have a diet that you're going to keep eating, that you won't regret having started, right? So one of the keys to vegan cooking is to think hard about texture. Because chances are your proteins are going to be soft, so you need to add crunchy things into them. Okay, so always think about, okay, what's the crunchy thing on this stew going to be? So for instance, the Indian curry that I cooked yesterday, I baked a whole metal pan worth of chickpeas that had been tossed in curry powder, and I baked them for about 45 minutes so they would crisp up. So you can put that on top of your curry so that when you're eating, your mouth doesn't go, this is all mush. I didn't mean to become a baby all over again, but rather, right, there's crunch. And as meat eaters, we are used to crunch, right? So barbecuing your vegetables is a good way of getting the crunch back. Yeah, Judy? Yes. Yep. Yes, that's right. Yeah, I just took a can of chickpeas, drained them, washed them, just got the stuff off them, and then I put them in a bowl, put in some curry powder and some salt, and then I put them onto the pan, and I drizzled them with some oil just so they wouldn't stick to the pan, and then I baked them for like 40 minutes. So, you know, you would bake your chicken, why not bake a chickpea, right? So the thing about this is you need to introduce protein into ideally all 3 meals that you have during the day. And one of the ways of doing that is to sneak them in a way that you would never do this on your own, just like in one spot. But peanuts, 36 grams of protein a cup. These things are protein superheroes. High in fat too, right? So you don't want to make a meal out of this. But if you're making a salad, always put nuts onto it. It helps with the crunch, and you're sneaking in protein. Walnuts, okay? I put these on my salads every time I make a salad. 27 grams of protein. And that's, like per cup. Now, you would never sit down and eat a cup of walnuts, but you might snack on them, right? But that's important. Like over the course of the day, you need to keep up your protein. So nuts are a good best friend in terms of snacking. Pumpkin seeds. Seeds are really, really high in protein. I mean, we tend to just snack them absent-mindedly, right? 48 grams of protein per cup. So throw pumpkin seeds and other types of seeds onto your salads. Throw them anywhere things are mushy or where you just want to get a little more protein in. Quinoa is also really good. It's like 28 grams, I think. I don't have my glasses on. Do I? No. Protein times 4. Yeah, so 24 grams of protein for quinoa. So you just want to introduce as much protein into your diet as you can in a sort of accidental, not really worrying about it kind of way, but in a tasty way. So For breakfast, frankly, if you love scrambled eggs, you can make tofu scramble, and it tastes pretty good. You can go to restaurants now, lots of people offer it, so try it once, have them do it once. It's a few more steps than an egg, but it still tastes really good and it lasts better. You can keep tofu scramble in the fridge in a way that you would never keep scrambled eggs in the fridge. The other thing to know is that there's a whole bunch of ingredients that you're just going to have to take off the list when you're cooking, right? So one would be milk. There's a lot of good plant-based milks. They're not super high in protein, but they have the consistency of milk, and for baking purposes, they work the same. So, and the thing about becoming a vegan is the longer you do it, the less accurately you remember the taste of meat and milk and other things which come from animals. And we humans are quite adaptable. So once you forget what chicken tastes like, then you can forgive tofu for for tasting like tofu. Same thing with these things. Like, I make pancakes with these. It works just fine. And you do have to understand some of the reasons why you were cooking with the stuff you were cooking. So for instance, eggs, right? There are egg replacements. So this is an egg replacer. Joyce has made a dessert where she used egg replacer instead of eggs. You can also use flaxseed. Flaxseed works as an egg replacer. You just grind it up a bit, mix it with some water, and it will actually do the same thing as an egg, not in its taste, but the reason that you have eggs in baking is mostly for its protein content and its fat content. That's why it works in a cake. So if you just find an alternate form of protein, like egg replacer or flaxseed, it's going to work. The other thing you need to replace is butter. There's good vegan butters. There's plant-based butters. Same thing with margarine. Sometimes they make them out of olive oil. Other times it's made out of vegetable oil. Tastes the same. Like the butters and the margarines, they've done a good job of trying to make it taste the same as what you're missing. So no shame there. Mayonnaise, there are vegan mayonnaises. So if you want to have mayonnaise with your sandwich, you can. And it tastes just the same. It's good. Whipping cream, which is, critical for desserts as well as like this curry that I'm going to serve, it used to require 2 cups of whipping cream. A can of coconut milk works just fine. Coconut milk's really high in fat. It has the same kind of look and consistency as whipping cream, like in its raw form. And if you put a can of coconut milk into the fridge for an hour or 2, and then take it out, you can whip it, and it will have the same consistency as whipping cream. So it's all possible, folks. It really, really is. You just have to figure out this one thing. How am I going to replace the protein with other proteins? Yeah, Joyce?
I had always been told that you also needed a whole grain to go with your legumes and your nuts in order to have all the amino acids required to build proper protein.
Yeah, but you should have whole grains in your diet anyway, right? As a meat eater, you should have whole grains as well. One of the major advantages of going vegan is that most of the vegan sources of protein have a fair bit of fiber in them, and you don't actually, like, as human beings, we have a biome in our gut, right? All sorts of bacteria which basically help our digestive tract deal with the food, and a lot of it we can't digest. So say bran in bread or the cellulose in plants. Your body doesn't absorb that stuff. That stuff passes through, but the bacteria loves it. So if you want to have a healthy gut, eat things which have a lot of fiber in them. A vegan diet, because you're dealing with plants much more, is going to introduce more fiber into your diet. And if you have a happy biome, you have a happy body, basically. People whose biome degrades or is not being fed enough will develop digestive issues and stuff. So whole grains are good for everybody, as is fiber. And this is a great way to get fiber. Molly?
A question just around that. Do you have any recommendations or suggestions for how to deal with bloating and other problems when you're eating more lean protein?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is you don't have to just eat beans, right? Like beans obviously do have that side effect that we end up bloating. So if that's a real problem, eat less or switch over to something that won't give you that effect, like lentils or chickpeas. they don't do that kind of bloating. I mean, there's just a certain amount of gas that comes with beans. I mean, I think when you eat beans a lot, you either get used to it or it goes down. I'm not sure which it is, but I don't notice it as much. But just switch over to something else, because there are other alternatives that have the same amount of protein. Erica?
Actually, a tip for that, you can soak them overnight, and it sprouts them a little bit, and that helps reduce bloating. So if you think ahead, you can soak like lentils overnight just with some water, and then that should help.
Yeah, so what Erica just said was if you soak beans overnight, that will actually reduce some of the bloating and some of the gas that you feel from eating beans. Other questions? Yeah, Zena.
The legumes are not the same, so make sure that you know about the softness of the wheat of the legume and the hardness of the legume. Because if it's harder, it takes longer to soak, maybe over 24 hours. Lentils are easy, 7 hours.
Right, so some legumes are harder than others to soak. They just take longer or shorter times.
One other thing is, legumes are good sources of iron. That's science-based. So to be able to absorb the iron from the legumes, they are recommending that we have some C source when we eat them to help absorb the iron by the body.
Some C source? What do you mean? Oh, vitamin C, right, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and there's no shame in taking a couple extra vitamins, you know, as a vegan. You know, you're doing the world a huge favor by becoming a vegan, so there's no shame in taking a couple of vitamins. Like I have B and D, which I take daily. It's lots of people do that even when they're meat eaters. But so that's my introduction. Like if you can figure out the protein content of things, then everything else changes. Like a salad, for instance. Normally you just have green salads, maybe a couple of chopped up vegetables, put some seeds and nuts on there. You want to have protein on your salad, but of course you're not going to, I mean, you could put in strips of cooked tofu, but you want your salad to still look like a normal salad. But beans, you know, seeds and nuts are an easy way to introduce protein. It gives it some crunch, which is good for the texture aspect. Sean?
Just a comment. I know some people are nervous to start eating, like going whole, ironically whole hog with vegan. Just to start with one meal. Try
Yeah.
one meal a week. See how you like it. I know you were going to talk about recipes in a minute too, but like experiment with recipes. And start with one meal, then build your way up and up and up. If you are a meat eater now, and you just want to like just try one meal to start.
Yeah.
And then build.
Yeah, it's a really good idea. One meal a week is a good way to just start, and there's some really good vegan restaurants in town, so if you just want to see how other people do it, Planta is amazing. It's like a high-class restaurant that just does vegan food. It's a little pricey, but it's oh so good. And lastly, I wanted to say, there is no vegan hell. Okay? Like, you're not going to hell because you cheated by being a vegan, right? Right? And that's important to keep in mind because especially when you're out and about, you see a cookie, yeah, it's almost certainly got dairy in it. Have the cookie if that's what you want to do. Oh, I need to take something out of the oven. You know, like you're saving the planet in degrees, not absolutely, right? So if you can take a little, if you could, yeah, thank you, please. And if you could put the other white tray in, please. You know, like if you're half vegan, that's still better than being a full meat eater in terms of the load on the planet. Do this at your pace, what works for you. So what if it takes a few years? You know, and you don't, I mean, my wife is celiac. So when she discovered she was celiac, she was going, let me get this straight. I can't have meat, dairy, cheese, or anything bread related. She said, I don't want life to be so dreary. So she decided she was going to start having cheese and eggs again. But everything I serve pretty much is vegan. Occasionally I'll put in some cheese just because I need the calcium. And calcium pills are no fun. So do it the way you want to do it. But if the goal is to take the pressure off the planet, anything that you do is better than what you were doing as a pure meat eater, right? And as you get used to vegan cooking, which is frankly kind of fun, and you get used to the tastes of it, and you may just find yourself eating vegan more often. And every time you do that, even if it's sort of unconscious, you're helping the planet. And we Christians want to help God's creation, right? So I'm not saying every Christian should be a vegan. No, 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 no. But this is a good way to go for health reasons as well as for planetary health reasons. So do it to the degree that you can. Judy? I miss shrimp. Oh yeah, if I were to cheat, I would go to shrimp because they were such an easy way to, just get some quick protein. They taste fantastic on the barbecue. But you can the omega-3s, yeah. No, you should take that with vitamins. Are vegan foods with omega-3s? I don't think so. Olive oil, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, walnuts, excellent. I have lots of walnuts. Yeah, and like cook with olive oil. Olive oil is good for cooking anyway. And the dietitians, when they look at the Mediterranean diet, they don't eat meat at every single sitting either, right? And they figure that's because they're using olive oil, which is helping keeping them afloat. So I did make some food, and so did Sean, and so did Joyce. So we do have some food for you. I don't know if it's enough for everybody here, so let's consider this a sampler rather than a full meal. But we've got tables out there, so give us a few minutes just to get a few things arranged, and you'll get to taste some. Frank.
You haven't mentioned the big word for health, broccoli.
Broccoli. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm about to serve you some broccoli, so you'll see. Yeah, broccoli is great for you on a whole bunch of ways, right? It takes a long time for your body to digest broccoli, which means that it releases the sugars slowly, which means that you won't be craving something halfway through the day, like halfway through the afternoon. It's a nice, slow time release thing. Lots of benefits to it. I didn't mention bread. Bread does have protein in it. There is some protein in it, but if you were to get all of it, you just have to check the label, since a lot of breads have dairy in them, and some don't, right? Like, it's just factory-made bread often has dairy in it, just for flavor and coloring too, I think. So if you want to be very conscientious about this, just check the labels. I used to shop without wearing my glasses. Now I shop wearing my glasses. Molly?
We watched a special just on how, in the special it mentioned how it's hard to keep muscle mass and fat mass when you're vegetarian. Can you talk about portions? Like, how much more should you be eating if you're eating a vegan meal?
Your body's pretty good at telling you when you're full. So I frankly, I've been using small plates lately. This is something the Japanese do, right? Where they serve things on small plates so that you won't eat too much. The Western diet basically is a really big plate that we expect to be filled, and we feel bad if we don't eat it all. And we're, statistically speaking, pretty obese compared to other cultures, right? So your body will tell you if you're not getting the right nutrients. But I'm doing this as a heads up so you won't make one major mistake. Yeah.
This is more of a philosophical question. A lot of our food production is industrial, but it has made our food more affordable.
Yep.
Whereas your cashew milk, your vegan butter, nuts are quite expensive.
Yeah, although these things are dirt cheap,
I understand.
right?
But is a vegan diet accessible to someone? Like, do the privileged benefit from the ability to have a vegan diet versus the industrial food production, which you can buy a burger for nothing?
Yep, that's true. But also, the burger's not all that good for you, right?
I understand.
Right. So,
It's convenient. It's
yeah.
easy to make.
There's some trade-offs. I mean, this isn't wildly different than a regular margarine, because margarines are made out of vegetable oil anyway. This stuff, although it's true it may be a bit more expensive than milk, it lasts way longer than milk. You're not going to throw this out. And you can buy it in box form off the shelf, not even refrigerated, and wait until you need it. Whereas, if you're not drinking enough milk, it can go bad and you have to throw it away. So there are some cost savings there. Ultimately, what's going to make vegan food affordable is more people becoming vegans, right? Like, the industry will shift. And It looked like it was shifting for a while, but now it's going the other way. Beyond Meat Burger and Impossible, they've actually been laying people off because there isn't the wellspring of vegan demand that they thought that there was going to be. And some vegan restaurants are closing and stuff too. This is one of those things where it's always going to be easier to eat meat. It just is. Our whole society is built complete with government subsidies to meat providers and so forth so that meat is easier. So we kind of have to make an ethical decision about, and sometimes it's a health decision, but often I think it's an ethical decision about, okay, but if this isn't sustainable for the planet, why are we doing it, right? So the same reason you'd buy an electric car or a hybrid, it would be a good idea to change your diet too, even just some. You don't have to, like I said, there's no vegan hell. You don't have to be perfect at this. Just some would be better for the planet than what we're doing right now. So I hope that helps. And I've got some cookbooks over here if you want to take a look. These are ones that I cook with all the time. And we're just going to do a few kitchen-y things, and then we'll bring out some food for you. Okay? All right, thank you.